This is Harshaw's Heroes, and I am Jubal. This is where you come when you want to make some sense out of the vast amount of BS that's floating around on the internet right now. What we do here is we take the information that's out there, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we try to sort it out into what the best we can find with our research is truth. This week, we're going to be looking at our buddy COVID. Yeah, remember that 2 weeks to flatten the curve? Well, we're up on 6 months of the same deal now. What we're going to be looking for today is the data, the numbers, the measures that we have taken to protect ourselves, their effectiveness, and in the end, do I think this was worth all this? I'm not going to get around to that yet. We're going to lay the information out for you first, and then I will share my opinion on this. The first thing I need to say is COVID-19 is an actual disease. When it first came about, we had no idea what was going on with it, and I believe in the initial flatten the curve for 2 weeks, that was a perfectly fine and good thing to do. The measures that were come out with since then, they were thought to be effective at the time, and over time and research and observation is the key to the scientific method. Other pieces of information have emerged that made items more or less effective as they were going. I'm not denying that COVID-19 exists. I'm not denying that it spreads at an incredible pace of speed. And I'm not denying that the pandemic, epidemic was there. What we're going to look at today is how serious that pandemic, epidemic is, and if what we're doing is effective or not. So, getting started. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. You all remember that. At the time, all the reports that were coming out was there was some weird virus out of China. There were stories from everything from it being created in a lab to somebody bit the head off a bat, and I thought of Ozzy Osbourne right away when I heard that. So the first thing that was come up with was to lock us all in our homes, close down all our businesses, so that the hospitals would not be overwhelmed by 1 billion people running in, or in our case in the United States, 330 million people reporting to the ER all at once and flooding our ICUs. That seemed wise and prudent at the time. I agreed with it at the time, I did. The reason for closing everything down for 2 weeks was stated to be to flatten the curve. We didn't want our ICUs overwhelmed by people flooding in need of dire care, who couldn't breathe, and who were going to die. The COVID virus is something that's been around for quite a while, and it's very similar to the flu. The obvious people who were going to be affected by this were the elderly, the people who had compromised immune systems. If it went like a normal flu, the very young would be also highly affected by this. Not so much your average working schmoes out there, not so much everybody else, but the idea was if we could just lock everybody up and keep everybody isolated for a couple of weeks, at least when grandma or grandpa or baby got sick, they would be safer, because everybody would be locked up in their own house. There would be minimal exposure outside of the house to the virus. And this way, as people got sick, they wouldn't be jamming into the emergency rooms. Moving forward, we went to masks. Now, masks also seem like a wonderful idea. Doctors wear them. Nurses wear them. Health professionals wear them. There's going to have to be food coming into the house. There's going to have to be fuel for the cars in case of emergencies. There is going to be at least a minimal amount of interaction, even if it's just going out to pick up your mail and running into the mailman at the same time. So the idea of the masks when you were outside was to minimize your exposure to the virus while you were outside the house. Again, seems like a logical idea. What we found out through time, though, was that the masks are not as effective as originally thought to be. The CDC itself and the labels on the actual boxes of masks, including the N95s, is that they are not effective in slowing the spread of COVID. The reason for this is even the N95 mask, it goes down to what particles that it will filter out of 0.4 microns. It's very, very tiny. It is. It's smaller than a lot of things. It's just not smaller than the COVID-19 particle, which comes in at about 0.1 microns. So, essentially what we're doing is, and I'm sure you've all seen the memes, we're putting up a chain link fence across our mouths and across our noses. And we're attempting to stop a handful of marbles from going through that chain link fence. Now, yeah, a half a dozen marbles might be stopped, but the vast majority of them are going to blow right through the mask. Recommended anymore. See, I was using a diplomatic word there. Not recommended anymore. They were saying, oh, you can wrap any old piece of cloth over your face and it'll be fine. A bandana, a decorative scarf, any of this stuff doesn't do anything. It keeps the splatter of a sneeze from hitting somebody else, or the spray from a cough hitting somebody else. It doesn't even filter the sneeze out of your mouth. It slows it down a little bit, but it all goes out into the air because the holes in a piece of cloth are gaping compared to the N95 mask. For these masks, they should be in use, but where they should be in use is among people who are at very, very high risk. We're talking the elderly. We're talking the elderly with multiple problems, respiratory problems. We're talking of hospitalized elderly where there are other possible diseases and causes of death, or causes of possible death that would weaken the immune system to any degree. So beyond the masks, we had the social distancing. This was the big thing. This was what was behind your workspace being shut down, your church being shut down, any gatherings in public halls, your movie theaters, bars, restaurants, the vast majority of businesses. They wanted you to be at least 6 feet away from another person. This is because the average measure of when a particle of sneeze or cough will hit another person is less than 6 feet. So 6 feet was picked out as a number. Really, they pulled it out of the air. Seemed like a good number. It's a random number, and again, because we knew nothing at the time, why not? No harm. It's for two. Now with the additional research we're seeing, well, the question has been posed a lot. If the masks are working, we don't need the social distancing. If the social distance works, we don't need the masks. Let's go on to the numbers. Numbers, again, are part of what I have done for a living for the past 22 years. So, according to the WHO report, there have been reported 6,750,000, roughly, cases of COVID in the country. Now, reported cases does not mean deaths. Recorded cases does not mean symptomatic. What recorded cases means is that in some form or another, COVID was thought to be a part of the process and was listed in the diagnosis. So out of those 6,750,000 people who have been diagnosed with COVID in one form or another, 4 million of them, actually 4,020,000 of them, are now considered cured. Out of the rest of them, the CDC reports in their report, right here, that we have, as of September 9th, 174,470 deaths. Now here's where it gets dicey. I know some of you have heard references to this report. This very report, which you can download, cdc.org, or is it cdc.gov? Anyhow, you can download it. Just look it up on the internet. It has been reported by some sources that, well, no, just 1,000 people died, or 1,200, or 1,700, or whatever it is. The thing that we have to keep in mind with this, and this is the purpose of Section 4 of this report, are the comorbidities. Remember how we discussed earlier that risk factors were very significant in whether you got COVID or not. The risk factors being elderly, the risk factors being compromised immune systems, or not developed immune systems as you would have in small infants. Now, out of these 174,470, approximately 134,000 were above the age of 65. And of the age of 65, above the age of 65, there are a lot of other health problems that contribute. Now, the other thing that is in this report are what they call comorbidities. What a comorbidity is another underlying health problem that contributed to death. We are talking everything from hypertension and strokes to cancers to other respiratory diseases to anything. Out of all 174,470 deaths that have been reported in the United States, only 6% reported COVID alone as the cause of death. Think about that, 6%. Now what 6% works out to is a little over 2,000 cases, 2,127, I believe I worked it out to. This is without a vaccine. We've managed to keep it to only this small amount of people who have actually died. Out of the high-risk groups, deaths from COVID are extremely rare. So, what do we leave you with here? I think this nonsense needs to stop. We need to go about our lives as normal and let the science catch up as best as it can. My Twitter peeps out there, Jubal Harshaw 13. Jubal, Jubal Harshaw, Harshaw 13 on Twitter. My Twitter peeps, hey guys, glad to see you again. And we know I can't see you, and you can't, well, you can see me, but I can't see you. Get some comments up on the comment section. Please like us. Please subscribe. This is a new venture. We're trying to get our numbers up, and we want you to be a part of what we're trying to do here. Have a great day. Have a good life. Freedom for all, and liberty for every individual. We're out.